15 years ago, working in tech felt like winning the career lottery.
Speaking of jobs, tech companies are starting to offer some really unusual perks. At Pinterest, employees get free lunches and dinners, even twice a month, studio nights where people learn new skills like Jell-O shot making. No, we're not kidding.
You were well paid, you were well fed, you had great perks, you were surrounded by smart people doing work that actually felt important. If you were good, you were safe. If you were great, you were untouchable. Tech also wasn't just a job, it was the future. Today, that promise feels broken. Layoffs at profitable companies, Google, Amazon, Intel, constant performance pressure, deadlines that never move, perks that quietly disappear, return to office, fewer decadent sign-on bonuses, and an unspoken understanding that no matter how well you perform, you're always one reorg away from being expendable. It's tempting to say that tech just got greedy, but that's not what happened. What actually happened is a lot more uncomfortable. Tech grew up. This isn't a story of collapse. It's the story of a change, of an industry moving from an unlimited upside to hard limits. That, and of course, AI. And once you understand that shift, everything that feels wrong about working in tech today suddenly makes sense. Tech isn't new. Apple was founded in the 1970s. Microsoft established their dominance in the 80s. But it was with the advent of the internet and after the dot-com bubble of the late 90s and the early 2000s that we really stepped into the tech era. A significant moment was probably when the US President Bill Clinton in 1996 signed the US Telecommunication Act of 1996 into law. This was the first major overhaul of the Telecommunications Act in 60 years. This was a law that in part reduced the overall regulation on the telecom sector. It carved out exclusions for internet services. It reduced the liability of companies in terms of what happened and was said on online platforms. From there, the Clinton government also created a framework for global economic commerce in 1997 that allowed the tech sector to develop in a minimally regulated environment. On the surface, the goal was to clear regulatory roadblocks for a sector with huge potential. At a deeper level, it functioned as a permission for the industry to move fast and break things. Imagine you're a tech CEO. You have this massive unaddressed market in front of you. You're at the starting line with everybody else. Your competitors have been given a pile of money just like you. You've got no constraints from the regulators. And the people throwing money at you? Their message was, don't worry about short-term profitability. Get market share, get big, get dominant, and do it however which way you think is right. So what do you do as a CEO? The only rational leadership thing to do is to be completely unhinged. The first thing you need to do is hire some people, and everybody is hiring people, and there aren't enough people. You have no historical brand recognition. You are nobody as a brand. You are not General Electric. So all you can do is make promises. You promise a huge salary. You promise an equity payout in the future on a level that no one has ever seen before. You promise the most dynamic, free, and creative environment. No corporate BS, no bureaucracy, no idea is too big or too small. If you're smart, the sky is the limit. And it's going to be busy, so you're also going to be promised a new, sparkling, brilliant office with artisanal coffee, baristas, in-house restaurants, foosball, and soft plush couches. They'll even throw in a free gym to sweeten the deal. And like Google, you promise that 20% of your time gets dedicated to whatever you find personally exciting. Speed is also way more important than anything else. The usual slow waterfall style of running big strategic projects is replaced by sprints and quick innovations, trying, failing, moving on. Plus, the possibilities are endless. So if someone wants to try something like an online video sharing platform, you get to go for it. In an unaddressed market with seemingly endless opportunities, the only rational thing to do was to go bananas in terms of pay, perks, and promises while being inefficient. Trying many things was just the strategically best business decision. And for a lot of these companies, it worked. Google, Meta, Netflix, they started small, they hired aggressively, they iterated fast, and they were focused on just getting ahead. I'm Mike, and this is my channel Work Unusual, where we talk about business and careers. If you're enjoying this video and other content on my channel, the best way to support this channel is by clicking the subscribe button. So please do so now. Thanks a ton. The first change begins to happen after the 2008-2009 financial crisis. The markets are shaken by subprime lending, and this bleeds into tech as well. You're a CEO, and now somebody for the first time is asking the question, when will you start making a profit? Then some market analysts downgrades you and your stock takes a tumble. After years of stocks only going up, you're shocked to see that they can go down. And investors are making phone calls to CEOs personally. So the question, again, to you as the CEO is, what do you do? Well, we know what many of them did. Google began shutting down projects that had limited earnings potential. Projects weren't just being cut. If you're Microsoft that had business-to-business customers with a solid earnings base and over 40 years in the market, you just kept keeping on. But if you were Mark Zuckerberg at Meta, you see your business under threat. No one wants that Facebook thing anymore, and it looks like they're going to move on to other platforms. As Mark Zuckerberg, the pressure to adapt, to change, to become more professional was much more immediate. Even if you were in a smaller firm, you were feeling the squeeze. Maybe not on earnings. There were still investors that believed in your growth, but you got asked the question if that in-house sushi chef really was necessary to achieve your strategic goals. But in all of this pressure, an opportunity also presented itself. Talent was becoming more abundant in your hometown and in India and China and the rest of Southeast Asia. Highly qualified, cheap engineers were being churned out, and they were ready to work for you at a fraction of the cost of your hometown candidates. So why not make some organizational redundancies, save some cost, reduce some complexity? For any reasonable CEO, these steps were rational and intelligent ones given the reality they were navigating in. They were getting squeezed from all sides. When they were seeing a limit to growth and seeing huge investments lead to nothing, something had to give. The only reasonable response was to cut perks, to cut projects, and to cut people. Which brings us to today. What is the landscape that the tech CEO is facing right now? For those running established businesses with solid bottom lines, companies that dominate their segments, the pressure hasn't gone away. Google in search and advertising, Amazon in cloud and advertising, Netflix in streaming, their shareholders are no longer asking politely. They demand growth, they demand profitability, and they demand a Q3 earnings report that meets expectations in a market that has very little patience. At the same time, capital is flowing aggressively into a new tech frontier, AI. The opportunities there feel limitless. The promise of transforming entire industries and the way work itself is done is enormous. And unlike previous waves, AI doesn't just create new products. It offers something even more attractive. It offers potentially efficiency at scale. Scott Galloway has called this corporate Ozempic, growth without the corresponding increase in headcount. Companies can eat without the calories. That's a genuinely new proposition. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they all grew in the last half of 2025 without adding headcount. In some ways, this moment looks eerily similar to the late 1990s. You've got massive opportunity, you've got regulatory uncertainty, a sense that the rules haven't caught up yet, but behavior is different this time. Because today's biggest players aren't startups with nothing to lose. They are incumbents with enormous existing businesses to defend. And they want in on AI just as badly as the newcomers do. So what does the rational CEO do then? They cut costs in core businesses and funnel capital into AI. Labor, which was once treated as a scarce and precious asset, is now a variable cost that needs to be optimized. The average non-AI software engineer has arguably never been more exposed to redundancy than they are today. While sitting right next to them, the top-tier AI engineer is being offered 9-figure compensation packages at companies like Meta. At the startup end of the spectrum, CEOs like Sam Altman at OpenAI are promising equity stakes that would have seemed absurd even 20 years ago. They have limited cash up front. They lure talent with the promise of life-changing upsides in the future. But unlike the first boom, this isn't cushioned by beanbags, free sushi, and unlimited autonomy. Oversight is tighter, competition is more intense, the stakes are much higher, and the expectations that come with that compensation level is brutal. This is where the stories of grind culture start to surface. AI might be the great optimizer, but it's optimizing organizations as much as it's optimizing code. The reality is tech didn't betray its workers. It revealed what it always was: a sector and a business like so many others. The golden age of tech wasn't the result of better values, kinder leaders, or more enlightened management. It was the result of explosive growth, regulatory freedom, cheap capital, scarce talent, and an almost infinite frontier. When those conditions disappeared, so did the magic. What you've got now is a mature industry governed by the same forces as every other capitalist system. As Milton Friedman put it, the business of business is business and nothing else. Shareholder returns matter more than culture decks. Efficiency beats experimentation, and job security only exists as long as your output justifies your cost right now. That doesn't mean that tech's a bad place to work. It means it's a normal place to work. And that's the real shock for an entire generation of engineers, designers, and product managers who were sold a myth, not maliciously, but conveniently, during a very specific moment in history. The nightmare isn't that tech changed. The nightmare is realizing that the version of tech we fell in love with just was never permanent. Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember to subscribe. See you soon.